because the last thing that you want to do is start a business where you're already desperate for money, right? Yeah. Desperation is a stinky cologne, and investors do not want to invest with someone who is desperate for their money.
Welcome to the Path to Wealth, the show about well-being, fulfillment, and financial freedom. And I'm your host, Hannes Henschel. Welcome back to the Path to Wealth. I'm your host, Hannes Henschel. I'm excited to introduce to you Christine and Danny Bellish. This power couple succeeded in their respective careers in the advertising sales industry, and they wanted to create generational wealth, live life on their own terms, and have flexibility. Hence, they took control by investing in real estate. Christine and Danny founded the Bellish team. In a short period of time, they were able to invest in over 1,000 units and own real estate in 6 states. Thank you very much for joining us today, and we're very excited to hear your motives and why you got in real estate and why you're so excited about your own financial freedom.
Thanks.
Yeah, we're excited to be here. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, we really appreciate it.
Of course. So, what originally brought you on tracks to even consider financial freedom? Like, were you fed up with your jobs, or what was the initial inspiration? What kind of sparked to think different?
So I'll jump in first, and it might be some similarities and some differences, but I would say that I was definitely motivated from a young age to pursue financial freedom. I grew up in, I would say, a lower middle income household, and there were definitely financial struggles growing up. And I remember the stress that surrounded that, and just never, ever, ever wanting to feel that way, and also never wanting my parents to feel that way. So I was really motivated to, hit the workforce and make as much money as possible so that I would never have to have any of those problems. But realized that working in corporate wasn't going to give me the lifestyle that I wanted. So definitely got burnt out in corporate, didn't really see a way towards the life that I wanted. And that really propelled me to want to pursue more passive income through real estate investing.
Yeah. And for me, first of all, I love that you start off the podcast with that question and not necessarily how did you get started in your journey, right? I think the inspiration for why people get started is sort of a different topic and just as important. For me, I was entrepreneurial from a young age. I always wanted to start a business. I was always pretty outspoken, and kind of had this insatiable curiosity for new ideas and being creative and wanting to I'll wake up in the middle of the night with an idea and run to talk to Christine about how we can bring it to life, right? But I also had a circumstance in my life in my early 20s where my parents, after being together for a long period of time, got divorced, and I grew up what I thought was, more middle class or even upper middle class. And, when they went through that, it was pretty clear that coming out of it, it wasn't the circumstance that I thought that it was. And I saw both of my parents really kind of struggle coming out of that. And I ended up having to sort of step up, especially for my mom being, the only son in the house with her. Then when I got into my corporate job and I started seeing, the fruits of my labor, and I started, being a top performer in my field and getting rewarded for that, I loved the smell of money, and it just, propelled me to want to have more of it. But then again, thinking about 2023, there are endless possibilities to make money and endless lifestyles that you can have. It's not the 9-to-5 grind anymore. You can really have freedom of choice, freedom of time, freedom of opportunity, and still be, extremely successful.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's also never been more destructive than right now, which, now we started with the why, and there's so many different hows, so many different pathways. But I think once you get clear why you clearly, both of you have your own reasons why you wanted to, reach escape velocity from the W-2 environment, live life on your terms. But why did you choose real estate?
I think we also just genuinely enjoy spending time with each other, and we're both incredibly close with our families. And we realized that in corporate, we were making great money, don't get us wrong, but we were very stressed, didn't have a lot of time, and we were just spending all of our effort and energy on things that weren't the most important to us. So we were looking for ways to build passive income, not just active income, and real estate really seemed like the path to do that.
I think it was at that time, honestly, the only thing that we knew to do that was a stable and secure investment. We had made other investments that, had a lot more volatility to it. And it was sort of a, you buy in or you invest and you wait for it to appreciate and then you exit. I think what real estate is able to provide is the cash flow in between so that you can be generating passive income, right? You can get into an opportunity or a property, work on it, get it to a place where it can give you cash flow for years and years to come. And we thought if we could do that and replicate that process over and over again, we could eventually build our cash flow income to a place that would replace our W-2s.
Yeah, nice. And why did you choose certain assets in the real estate class? And I mean, I know what you're investing in, but I want you to kind of lay it out for us, why you pick those over others, because real estate can be so many different things. There is 1,000 ways to make money in real estate. Why did you hone on these particular asset classes?
Yeah, that is a phenomenal question. And so first, I think let's review the different asset classes that we are investing in, and then we can kind of explain to you how our thought process and our strategy has evolved over time, because it has changed. So when we first got started, we started investing locally near where we live in New Jersey in small multifamily properties. So our first investment property in New Jersey was a duplex in Asbury Park, which we did a BRRRR to buy, renovate, rent out, refi, repeat. That was a nightmare project. It was not passive in any way. Took a lot of money, took a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. And, coming out of that project, it was a great investment, but we just realized that it wasn't scalable enough for us and that we couldn't duplicate it quickly enough. So we went to a meetup in Manhattan in the beginning of 2020 that was about buying multifamily properties out of state. And we thought it was going to be doing more of the same of what we were doing, but in areas that were more affordable, more landlord friendly, lower taxes. But it actually ended up being about syndication. And we were really excited when we learned about syndication because it was the opportunity to be truly passive coming off of this nightmare project that we had just worked on, which was not passive at all. So when we first started investing in syndication, we're investing primarily in value-add multifamily properties. And the reason why we got involved in those is because we were looking for cash flow, like Danny mentioned. But the market has definitely changed over the past few years with rising property prices, interest rates out of control, labor is super high, materials are super high.
And low single family inventory.
Yeah.
So it's driving people to rent more, which has been great for multifamily, but it's also driving a ton of new institutional and mom and pop investors into the multifamily space for that growth and that stability in hard assets. Whereas, you're looking at the market right now and it's extremely volatile. So when we saw a bunch of new investors enter the multifamily market, we knew that it was becoming too saturated to be able to pencil out and actually cash flow. So that's when we started to really pivot and also listen to our investors, right? You started to see the onset of a recession and everything that was happening with COVID and inflation, and they wanted something that felt more stable. They wanted something that felt like a more of a safe haven for their money than, let's say, a C or B class multifamily that does have a little bit of volatility when you're implementing this value add strategy. So that's when we sort of really dove headfirst into double and triple net leases. So we started a fund to purchase a double or triple net lease, which is essentially when you buy the building and the land where a business is operating. In our case, it's a very well-known business. You think about Dollar General or CVS or Starbucks or AutoZone. These types of businesses are your tenants in this situation. And they have these long-term leases with built-in rent increases. They corporate guarantee the rent. And what double and triple net actually means is that the tenant covers most, if not all, of the expenses. So, when in a multifamily situation, the landlord covers the property taxes, insurance, maintenance, utilities, things like that. In a double and triple net, the tenant actually covers all of those expenses. So as inflation, is increasing all of those costs, that doesn't get passed down to us and hit our bottom line. That all gets passed on to the tenant.
Yeah.
And then sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. The last.
Then the last asset class that we've really gotten into, considering the low housing inventory, is to create more housing through either development or redevelopment. So it's either developing new multifamily housing, or what we're doing now is you see a lot of these older or vacant office buildings because of the, work from home and the remote work that's happening across, the world, really. And it's an opportunity to get into these office buildings at a great cost basis, and then you transform them into multifamily and create more housing for those local markets that really need it. So those are the multifamily, net lease, and development and redevelopment are the three areas of business that we've been focusing on.
Let's unpack all of that. And just one small side comment,
good luck.
Yeah.
Because you just said one of the redevelopments that I always have in my mind is walking down Wall Street over the last 10 years, actually, and seeing those original office buildings being transformed into luxury apartments. And, those are very heavy lifts that might not be quite our size yet. But it always struck me. I'm like, wow, this is so amazing that, now we have so much computing power in these small devices that what used to take an entire building of clerks is suddenly put into servers. There's a lot less people in those buildings. And now in the middle of the city, you turn this whole thing back into apartments, which was stunning for me. But now going back to everything you just mentioned, let's talk a little bit about double and triple net leases. We speak a lot about syndication here, not so much about this particular asset class. And maybe you explain a little bit for the listeners and the potential passive investors, how does it work? And for example, why do these corporate businesses don't want to own the real estate themselves?
So I think the first reason why is they're not in the real estate business, right? Like some of the examples that Danny gave, he said Starbucks. Starbucks is in the coffee business, right? Dollar General is, in the consumer goods business. An urgent care center, for example, is in the business of, helping care for people when, they're sick. So they don't want to necessarily take on the expense that is required to invest in the real estate upfront by actually purchasing the lands, making the down payment, et cetera. But the good news is that the tenants often do pay for the outfit of that space. So us as the owners of these properties, like Danny said, we own the building and we own the land, but if Dollar General is our tenant, they're coming in there and they're completely outfitting the space. So we're not paying to, do that for them, which is great. They're making a huge investment in the property that we own, which increases the value. And
if you think about, let's use Dollar General as an example. If they have 1,500, 2,000, 3,000 locations across the country, it would cost them billions upon billions of dollars for them to purchase all of that real estate. And that money then gets taken away from their ability to improve their customer service, have new goods, be constantly reevaluating new spaces. They would rather take over 5 new locations and rent there than buy one property.
Yeah.
And that's, a lot of what their motivation is to be great at what they're great at and not take on the extra burden. Plus, they want to be able to be as nimble as possible.
Yeah.
And when you own real estate, you know that it's kind of a long-term strategy.
Yeah, and eventually, if they have to close shops, obviously it's a lot easier to get out of a lease than it is to actually unload the whole thing. And then depending on the market conditions, if you try to unload the property in the midst of a recession, it's also a lot harder than just maybe paying off whatever is left on the lease.
Exactly.
Yeah, the reality is that, these companies want to become staples of that community. They don't want to leave, right? They end up staying there for long periods of time. And then as an investor, what we look for in those properties are strong credit-worthy tenants that have corporate or franchise guarantees. I know I talked about that before, but what that really means is if you buy a Dollar General corporate is going to guarantee that rent, guarantee that lease. So if you have a Dollar General with 7 years left on the lease and they decide they want to close that store in year 2, they owe you 7 years of rent payments. You still get that 7 years of rent payments. So it's a great hedge for us in times of recession and inflation and all of that to know that there's stability for years to come, regardless of what happens with that particular store.
And I would argue that a Dollar General is pretty recession proof. Like if we are getting hit by a recession, that's probably where people start flocking to first.
You hit the nail on the head. So our specific strategy is not just to purchase any net lease properties. It's specifically targeting single tenant net lease properties. And it's properties that are already occupied by essential business tenants. So Dollar General or dollar stores are one of our targets. We're also targeting urgent care centers, veterinary clinics,
auto services, because of what's going on in the auto market now. People have more used cars on the road now than ever. So those places like Firestone and AutoZone are doing extremely well. Plus, we actually looked back in history. So we acquired 3 dollar stores in the last 4 months. We look back in history during the 2008 recession, and Dollar General was the best performing stock during that recession, up 60%. So, you kind of have to look back into history to see what are people's consumption habits during these times of increased volatility and recession. And these essential businesses, especially the dollar stores, are performing extremely well.
Yeah. So what are the downsides? You make it sound so nice and so recession proof. And why aren't we all flocking out of multifamily into single net leases?
Yeah, I think, the way that a lot of investments work, right, is you imagine big risk, big reward, right? This is on the opposite end of the spectrum. This is a lower risk, quote unquote, lower reward type of situation. This is not necessarily a huge appreciation play. And that's not saying that there's no opportunity for appreciation or that there couldn't be opportunity for, big appreciation. But our strategy in this case, because we're buying turnkey properties that are already occupied by these businesses, is really just to preserve wealth and to generate steady cash flow. So you're not going to get rich. You could get rich depending upon your strategy, but we're not looking to get rich off of this. We are just looking for steady cash flow and to preserve wealth. So I think also the other downside would probably be, if a tenant leaves, right? And it's great that the leases are corporate guaranteed for the remainder of that term, but vacancy can be an issue in that case. So for us, that's the reason why we're investing in a fund model, because we don't want the performance to be solely based on the performance of one asset. If one of the tenants leaves and we can't replace them immediately, we don't want our investment to be horrible.
Yeah. That makes 100% sense, because just top of my mind, I have like a small range of buildings that I remember where the tenant decided to leave, and some of them might have been maybe prematurely in terms of the lease, but they were just empty for quite some time, and some of them multiple years, and then it becomes a real drag on the investment, especially for your passive investors.
Yeah, it's the same. It's the same mentality or same sort of situation if you have a duplex versus you have a 10 or 20 unit, right? If you have a duplex and one of those units are vacant, that's 50% of your entire revenue. That could kill your entire year's cash flow. If you have a 10 or 20 unit and one or two are vacant, you can really subsidize your revenue with all of those other tenants. It gives you more economies of scale. So we started a fund so that we could acquire multiple net lease properties within the fund, and that's what helps us balance risk.
What's the vision, the goal?
And also not only risk, it helps us diversify across business types and geographies.
Yeah, I was just going there. What's the vision and the goal kind of in terms of the diversification in geographies, but also the size maybe that you're trying to get to with the fund to maybe stay nimble and but at the same time get to a size where people that are participating in the fund feel like they're very well diversified?
So I think in general, by pivoting into this asset class, we have invited our investors an opportunity to diversify their portfolio. So whether we buy, 2 assets in the fund or 10 assets in the fund, by, investing in the net lease space in general, I think that is already starting to diversify their portfolio. In our minds, the more diversification, the better. So the bigger that we can grow our fund and the more properties that we can buy, the safer that we feel like, the investments will be. But at the same time, the more the fund grows, the, higher purchase price properties that we're going to be able to afford. So it's going to be a balance between that, right? Like even as the fund grows, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to buy so many more properties. We just might buy more properties, that
are higher value.
Exactly, higher value properties.
Yeah, that's a good way to size up the fund at the same time. So what are your goals, your aspirations? What are you going for? What are you currently working on? So
for us personally, our goal from what we talked about at the beginning has always kind of remained the same. It's, but it has evolved in a way, right? Like Christine and I, we want to generate as much passive income as possible. So we could really pick up and go somewhere for a month if we want to. We could work from the beach. We can live life more on our own terms. That's really the goal. And we are seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. It's actually pretty close. So it's getting really exciting. But now that we're moving into this syndication space, we're able to invite our friends and family and, friends of friends along for the ride. And that's been, I think, one of the most rewarding parts of it, and a part that we didn't really seek out to do when we started in real estate that now has become a total priority for us. So it's not just us pursuing our own goals and our own dreams, but bringing along the people who are beside us to do the same thing. And I think seeing that value brought to them has brought, a whole new joy and a whole new mission to what we do.
I think from a more just tangible perspective, though, like our most immediate goal would be to have Danny leave his W-2. So he still has a W-2. And I think that would be like a more tangible goal. And yeah, I think beyond that, I always joke about this, but I'm also serious. I want to be a full-time passive investor eventually. We're active right now because we can generate the passive income faster by having our GP equity as well. But I'm looking forward to be a full-time LP as soon as possible.
I actually love that you made this distinction because, you as well as me, we're kind of in the growing stage of our portfolio and the wealth, the foundation of it. But I've seen some people actually go through their own journey and become full-time LPs. And I thought that was like such an aha moment for me too. I'm like, wow, there is a guy who is like very committedly just evaluating LP opportunities. And like he had such a system, and he's invested not just in dozens of deals, like it's like a whole range of different deals. And that's all he does, and it doesn't take him a whole lot. And now he's so sophisticated in it, and I thought that was such an aha moment. Like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. You're not, after having the freedom of doing maybe during the week what you would like to do, which is stepping away from W2, kind of becoming your own boss, but you're still so active, because at the end of the day, we still have to, manage the businesses or manage the property management and everything that's a part of it. And we have to be in touch with lawyers. And you actually mentioned it earlier, you got a contract back that was redlined. There are so many things. So I love that you made that distinction where like, I just want to be a full-time LP. And then, you just receive your checks, your K1s, you give that to your accountant. You look over everything every other month, and you enjoy what you love to do.
I think that there's a few things to unpack there too, right? Like, first of all, we get a lot of aspiring syndicators and aspiring investors want to invest with us, right? And they, or they want to pick their brain, or they want to, be a commercial investor. They want to buy a 300-unit apartment building tomorrow. And I just am not sure that many of them understand really what it takes to do that. Right. And all of the hustle that it takes. We also talk to a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs that are ready to leave their job tomorrow, right? Like they want to get into real estate and they want to leave their job and go full time in real estate. And yeah, exactly. Like right now. So, when we talk to them, we really try to help them understand, number one, the value that you can get from a corporate job and the skills that you can get from a corporate job that sometimes you can't get in the free entrepreneurial world where, your life is what you make of it, right? You get a lot of tools and a lot of resources and a lot of skills from working in corporate in a situation that isn't necessarily your own business that you should take advantage of. The other thing is you are making steady income at that time. Use it to your advantage. Be investing while you are working in your corporate job until you get to a point where you feel comfortable and confident. Because the last thing that you want to do is start a business where you're already desperate for money, right? Yeah. Desperation is a stinky cologne, and investors do not want to invest with someone who is desperate for their money. So make sure you set yourself up in a good, thoughtful situation from both a skills and a financial standpoint before you actually leave your job.
Yeah, 100%. Everything you just said rings so true. No investor wants to have a GP, who is tight on the money, who is desperate for money, where at the end of the day, the goals don't align. They just simply can't align.
Exactly. Yeah. You are going to best serve, as a GP, you're going to best serve your LPs if you understand
your limited partners,
your investors. Yeah, your investors. If you are caring about what they want, right? You're not shoving every single deal that you have down their throat. You're understanding which one meets their needs, because different deals are structured differently. Different deals have different return projections, different timelines, different goals, right? Some are more cash flow focused, some are more appreciation focused. When we talk about net lease versus development, for example, right? Those are the two perfect examples that are kind of on the opposite ends of the spectrum. So, you are going to best serve your investors or any client that you have out there if you're really looking out for their best needs and not just what your best interest is, right? Which is getting the money now. If you're not desperate, you're going to really take your time and be patient with them and, encourage them to invest in the opportunity that really makes the most sense for them based on what they're looking for.
And if you're looking to do this for a long period of time, then that's how you have to approach it. It can't just be about the deal that you have in your hands now. It has to be about the next 10 years of you doing this and understanding what's going to be best for you and for them in the long term. And that's developing a genuine and true relationship and doing what's best for them.
Yeah. Which also at times might be turning down certain investors. And I think overall, there has to be so much alignment between us as GPs and LPs and kind of their goals. And what you mentioned earlier, it's like, hey, some of them, they might earn very well right now, but they want to quit their job by tomorrow. And it's like, hey, I'm just done. I want to check out of this corporate thing, and I just want to be a real estate investor. And there's another group of people where I see that they spend like a lifetime living a highballer life, spending their six-figure incomes, and that's very easy. You and me, we both lived in the Upper East Side. You can spend it in no time on rent and all the restaurant outside, and it's very easy to get rid of money in New York. And then at the later stage in their life, they have this aha moment. They were like, wait, where's my cushion? Where am I gonna kind of draw from when it comes closer to retirement? And then again, that's like, are those potential LPs aligned with the strategy that you're choosing, And I think that's why everybody should get started as early as possible and make their job optional, maybe way before they actually want to leave. And that's something that I think anybody that earns six figures or multiple six figures can do with a little bit of discipline. If they don't upgrade too fast on their lifestyle according to the income, but they become disciplined very early and go through the education and make their W-2 income optional.
So I'll give you two examples that are on sort of opposite sides of the spectrum. The first example is, we have an investor who has been an executive in the media and advertising industry for a long time and is extremely successful, does very, very well for herself. She invested in one of our deals and started getting, distributions from that deal. And she came to me or we had dinner together, and essentially she said, what that made her realize is she has no other sources of income other than her job. If she were to lose her job tomorrow and this big income and all of the expenses that come along with having a big income, to your point, if she lost her job tomorrow, she would have zero money coming in. And once she realized that, it scared the heck out of her. And then she invested in another one of our deals, which was great. But that is part of it. And everybody's reading the headlines right now and all of the layoffs that are happening across, every sector, whether it's, media, entertainment, technology. There's layoffs happening everywhere, and this could happen to anyone. So, one of the best ways that we wanted to not only have this time freedom, but also protect ourselves, right, and protect our family, is to have other streams of income. The other example that I was going to talk about was we have another person who's now an investor, but a couple years ago, we did turn someone down who wanted to invest with us. And he is an older guy, a veteran who has a family that he was building, or he has a family that he was trying to build for, and he wanted to immediately get into real estate. And he wanted to invest in our deal, and he had about $30K to his name, right? So he wanted to put 25 into our deal. And, I spent a long time, many conversations trying to understand, what his circumstance was, what his motivation is, what his wife does, how old his kids are, if they still live with him or not, really understand the full picture. And we unfortunately had to say no in a way that was like, listen, I'm saying no right now because I care about you as a person. I want to make sure that you and your family are in the right financially secure place in order to participate in a real estate deal like this that also is a long-term opportunity.
Illiquid.
Yeah.
So it was guiding him on how to build his emergency fund, how he could get into more liquid investments that, were more secure in the short term. And then a year later, we had regular conversations for us to help guide him. A year later, he had tripled that number. And by that time, it was the right time and he was able to get into our deal at 25K. So it's that kind of journey that you have to take with some people and really understand their full circumstance, because we have a responsibility as well to make sure that those people are doing the right things for themselves.
You already mentioned it earlier, but isn't it amazing that we now have the ability to not only take care of ourselves, our own immediate finances, but also bring some guidance to people and, help them really make sense of their own finances. Isn't this one of the most rewarding pieces to what we're doing?
It's amazing. I mean, like the examples that Danny was giving, some of those people, one of them is a close friend that we've known for a long time. One is somebody that we've met more recently who has become a friend, And that's amazing, like the reach that we have now. Even like technology is amazing, the way that we are able to connect with people across the globe. Like, you are
in Germany,
yeah,
right now.
Germany, and we're in New Jersey. Like, that's pretty amazing. But even when I just think about the conversations that we've had with our family too, have been so special to me, because I feel like people are embarrassed to talk about money. I feel like there's a stigma about talking about it. And the reality is there's no way for us to learn from each other and learn from each other's experiences and to level up unless we have the conversation, right? So we need to be talking about it. And I can use my cousins as an example. I have conversations with my cousins who are like my sisters. I'm an only child. And I just feel like hearing them talk to me about these investment opportunities now, and like seeing the light bulbs go off in their head and seeing the progress that they've been able to make. And really, we've been able to empower them, and give them freedom in their lives to feel like they can take control and like make smart financial decisions for themselves, rather than, just placing it in the hands of random Fidelity or some other advisor.
And it doesn't just become about them now, right? They all have small children, and they are all growing their family. So they understand the importance of, okay, this isn't just about me going on more vacations, right? It's about me giving more opportunity to my children.
And also passing down the knowledge that they have learned to their kids, so their kids will learn it even sooner.
100%. And it's interesting to look at it. That's the true generational wealth. Beyond the money that we might pass on, it's the knowledge that we were able to blend at an early age, which, as you said, that will not only carry them, but their children. And this is the beauty, of sharing and how it's moving forward. And one of the things that I also, in my immediate family, my brother and me, we're doing some real estate together. And originally, his wife, she was like a little bit like, why do you guys talk so much about money? But then he was like, you realize that, this means that I only have to work maybe like 20 hours when we have kids instead of 50. And then she like really got it, what this means in terms of the freedom, and also then the ability to be with the children, and in return also nurture the children a certain way, very differently than other parents could, because they're working so much. And
totally.
And it's so cool to see how the journey progressed from, you educated yourself and you carried it into your family, and I educated myself and I brought it to my family, and how those little seeds start, popping out. It's like spring, actually the perfect season right now. It's, it's spring, and you see all of those little pots. And I always keep saying that we don't even yet know what seeds come of the plants we're growing. There could be so many hundredfolds of seeds, different generations, different people that reach different people. And it's just so beautiful, which is why I love doing this, why I love having these conversations. And yeah, thank you so much for being so inspiring as a couple. It's always amazing to see someone who not only takes care of themselves, but their friends, their community, their family. So one of my questions that I always like to ask is, what do you consider a life well lived?
Boy.
Wow.
I just think it's having as much fun as possible, laughing as much as possible, smiling as much as possible, just leaning into doing more things that truly bring you joy, like spending time with the people that you love, doing the things that you love, and letting the people that you love know that you love them.
Yeah, I think that's great. Two things that like your comment also made me think about is, especially when it comes to time, right? And when we think about our business and how hard we work every single day, we kind of want to always say, what would 40 or 50-year-old Danny want me to do today, right? Would he have wanted me to go to that meeting and present in front of 60 people? Would he want you to grind it out and go, for this path that is the road less taken, right? And what we say is like that we are cramming 25 years worth of work into like 5 years of building this business to a place that gives us the freedom that other people wouldn't be able to touch until they turn 65. However, just like you said, you and your brother, you're always talking about finances, right? Christine and I are always talking about finances. We're always talking about work. Now with all of our friends and family, we're always talking about finances. We're always talking about work.
Even hanging out with our friends and family seems like work sometimes.
What I would say is like to really find the time back to that laughter, back to that joy, back to those things that really make you happy, and having balance in your life. Even though you should work hard and you should go after your dreams, really plan those things that are going to make you escape from, the grind of the business and all of those finances. So like, we are very outgoing people. We love to have fun. We love to travel. We love to go out, and we love to laugh and joke. And like, sometimes we forget how to do that. And I think it's important to always make time for those things.
Yeah, 100%. I love that. And I also love how you tied it around the corner and be like, hey, this is all great, but, bring it back to the laughter. Christine, you also said it, joy is such a key word. It's not just that fleeting happiness or like one good night out. It's like this true sense of fulfillment and joy that one can carry through their life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And we appreciate you having us on so that we could talk about it. And, one last note, we could talk about passive income and we could talk about laughing and having a joyful life, but having a partner that you can enjoy it with who, we do everything together, and we support each other and we're there for each other and we're each other's best, life partner and business partner. And everyone who wants to have a life well lived should try to find themselves a partner, whether that's in business or in your personal life, that can help balance you out, that can help you laugh when you need to laugh, that can help carry some of the workload, and that can really support your dreams.
Wow.
I second that.
This was a great final note, man. There's nothing else to add yet, Annie.
Go kiss your wife now.
Yeah.
But first, before I run out and go kiss my wife, I want you guys to share with us where people can connect with you, where they can find you, and potentially, become LPs in your fund.
Sure, yeah. So we are super active on social media. You can find us on LinkedIn, just my name, Christine Bellish, Danny Bellish, pretty much any other social platform at The Bellish Team. Our website, www.thebellishteam.com. Or you can email either of us. We're super responsive. My email is Christine@thebellishteam.com and Danny's is Danny@thebellishteam.com.
Awesome. I'll also make sure to add those to the show notes. And man, I'm just like, I feel so grateful and a bit soft right now. This conversation was just like very, very awesome. So thank you so much for, being so open, being so joyful, really bringing this out here, not just to me, but on a day-to-day basis. This was an amazing and inspiring conversation.
Such a pleasure to be here. Thank you again so much for having us. It was great chatting with you.
Yes, and can't wait for the next time.
Thank you for joining us at the Path to Wealth. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Check out our upcoming guests and be sure to share it with all your friends and family that want to take their life to the next level of wealth.